Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to another episode of Intuitive Creators Spotlight. During this series, I invite amazing souls who share their stories. They share what inspired them to embrace certain journeys in their life, because I truly believe that every single story is healing and it can guide us towards the next chapter of our life. So today we have Suzanne here. She is a remarkable intuitive guide from London. She has a deep passion for dreams, shamanism, and the mystical world of obsidian. Welcome, Suzanne. I'm super happy to have you here today.
Hi, Stella. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
I'm super excited to have you here. And yes, I was thinking about, as I was preparing for our interview, I really felt this energy of magic, and I couldn't wait, to ask you all of these questions. But my first question for you will be, if you can please share with us one of your maybe earliest dream experiences in your childhood that maybe, now it really impacted you. Maybe you didn't understand it when you were a child, but now it really impacted you.
Okay, so yeah, there is one. I was about 8 years old and I had this really interesting dream. And I dreamt that I was in my bedroom in my childhood home. And I dreamt that this owl at night came to my window and it was just like at my window and it was calling me. And I knew to follow it. So in the dream, I went out of my home and I followed it and it took me up the road. And there was always this house kind of up the road from where I lived that looked a bit like a witch's cottage. And it had kind of trees growing in front of it. It was a bit dark at the front. And I dreamt that the owl led me to this house and there was an old lady in the house and it just took me in. I don't remember anything about what happens after that. But even at that age, I just felt like I probably received some sort of initiation and that was some sort of wise woman. And I knew that I'd seen, it wasn't familiar like at that age with shamanic traditions, but I'd heard that in Native American Indian culture, they referred to owls as they would talk about something about the owl calling your name. And this was when the owl came to you when people died, basically. So I didn't fully understand all the connections, but I just felt like something magical had happened. And I'd always had a fascination for dreams since that age, basically.
Mm. Yeah, and now you are embracing this realm of dreams, and you're stepping with it into the next chapter of your life where you're serving and helping others as well. But I know that all of this, this chapter of deciding to help others as well started with a powerful dream where you saw an obsidian in your dream. Tell us about that one.
Oh yeah, this was fantastic. So I went to Mexico and I went to one of the big pyramid sites, Teotihuacan, and obsidian is a really big thing in Mexico. It's huge. It's all over the place. It's considered sacred. And I bought, you have these big shops in on some of these sites, and they had this huge shop full of different rocks and carvings. And so I just bought this quite small piece of obsidian stone. And one night I unwrapped it and just left it next to my bed. And the only way I can describe it was I felt like I was dancing. I was in this white room and I felt like I was dancing with obsidian all night. And I woke up and I thought, that wasn't a normal dream. That's some kind of spiritual sign, I feel. And I thought maybe I need to work with the stone. So I started looking up on Google, like obsidian, shamanic teachers. And I'd heard of this tradition from Mexico where women do a practice with an obsidian egg. And I got it into my head that that's what I needed to do. And I kept on searching and what kept on coming back was this teacher called Sergio Magana, and he works with obsidian tools and he teaches people to use the mirror. And it also happened to be in London, which is where I live. And even though I wasn't in the UK when I was doing this search, that was just what kept on coming back. So I was like, okay, it's this. And so I went to one of his workshops with the mirror, which is a very ancient practice. And it's not a dreaming practice, but it helps you gain dreaming abilities. And it ended up being this long journey where I did quite a bit of stuff with him, and I've been to Mexico with him, and he's a brilliant teacher. And he has a very powerful, comes from a very powerful lineage of this tradition, basically. So that led me into a whole path, and I think that's been a big influential piece in how I've got here. It's not the only way I work. There's a lot more to
Mhm.
what I do, but that was hugely important, clearly, and it was a
Mhm.
dream that brought me to him, you know.
And then it started from there, your curiosity to expand, to dive deeper, to explore your own inner world. And that's fascinating. You mentioned something about dream or dreaming abilities. How would you explain this? Can anyone develop it?
I think that we all have it. It's something, it's one of the reasons I like working with dreams, because I believe that this is something that transcends any kind of background or race or wherever you've come from. I think we all have it. All of us dream. I do think some people have a slightly more natural strength towards it, a bit like if you think of something like singing, but
Mhm.
everyone can train and everyone can have these abilities. What happens though is we lose quite a lot of energy. If you believe in past lives, we can lose a lot of energy in past lives. And even in this life, through trauma, through stress, and that can actually affect our ability to dream. Now, some people experience that through losing all recall. Other people, it may go the other way, where they actually end up having really intense nightmares on a regular basis. But these are all things we can actually work with. They're not something that we are victims to, but obviously in our society, we're just not taught a lot of this stuff. But there's a lot we can do to develop our relationship and a harmony within our dream life.
I love that so much. And when you say about, because you mentioned you knew that wasn't like a normal or a simple dream, it was something different. How can somebody differentiate between a normal dream and a more spiritual dream, let's say, or something, some other types of dreams as well?
Well, for me, it was really to do with the feeling of the dream and just the intensity. Like the dream felt like it went on all night, which I don't normally have, if I'm honest. What's interesting as well was that dream. I was in a white room in that dream, and when after training with Sergio, I found out that there is a thing called a white dream, and this is actually white. It's related to. It's a bit like they don't call it the medicine wheel, but there is a bit like a medicine wheel, and the direction of the white is east. And so this can also relate to different colors. So the white room, or something with a lot of white, or potentially gold or yellow, actually is the direction of that's a very spiritual and a direction of spirituality and illumination. So I just, it was more of an instinctive thing at the time, but actually after later learning more about this tradition, there is a sort of a code that makes sense as well. But also it's just, yeah, going with your feelings as well. And if something just sticks out, because I think that we all can have a dreaming pattern, and with all of us, it's going to be completely different. Like mine will look very different to yours, but you will know when a dream sticks out. It's like, that's not how I normally dream. There's something a bit extra going on there. That's the best way to describe it, really.
Yeah, and you usually remember those dreams for a very long time, for your entire life. And then
Right?
every time you think about them, there is still that feeling, I had that experience, that message was there. And thank you so much for explaining that. Now, if you were to think about your relationship with dreams, how did it evolve or change over time?
Oh, wow. It's quite a big question.
Mm.
um, well, I think that it's just about the attention I've put onto it. And also, I've explored them in different ways throughout my life. So, as a teenager, I actually self taught myself to lucid dream just through books. And then that casts a totally different attention onto your dreams, because it's about realizing you're dreaming. So then
Mhm.
that changes. And I also notice whenever I have a lucid dream, it's always a particular quality that isn't like my other dreams. Like things are a bit more neon, and suddenly the form of things gets more noticed. But then doing the work with the Mexican dreaming, it's you're actually almost kind of for want of a better word, kind of manipulating your dreams. You're actually making things happen. You're putting things in there to see, particularly animals.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's just an ongoing exploration and experience. And there's what I love about dream work is there's actually a lot of different ways you can work with it. There's not one or two ways, there's many
Mm-hmm.
ways. So it
Mm-hmm.
really is up to you if you're doing it more just for the experience, or if you're actually trying to develop spiritually or do something to change your waking life. So it's
Mm.
quite, almost can't answer it because it's just kind of a big topic, really. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's an adventure, actually, I would say.
Well, it's clear that you were inspired to learn more and more and more about it. So it's beautiful that you continue to explore this realm. So to
Mm.
those people who may say, "Hey, I never dream," or "I never remember my dreams. I would like to, but I don't know how to do it." What kind of advice or thought would you like to share with them?
So this is like a very basic and quite obvious technique, which is to keep a dream journal.
Mhm.
And so just the pure act of putting attention on it often makes a big difference. And the other thing is not to get stressed about it. So if you start doing it, oh no, I can't remember my dreams, probably it's not going to make it better if you stress out about it. So it's like, just relax, put the intention there. So I really want to start remembering my dreams, have the dream journal, but don't put pressure on yourself. If it doesn't happen, even if it takes a long time, it's fine, it's all cool. Try not to have that attachment, because that's going to help you if you relax into it. The other thing is, which I've found really useful, is dreams can be a bit like morning dew. They just evaporate. So you
Yeah.
might really remember, like, as you're waking up, wow, I had this dream, and then poof, it's gone. So
Mhm.
what I've found to be really useful is to have your phone or to have a voice recorder.
Yeah.
So when you wake up, and even if you're still half asleep, or even if you want to go back to sleep, you just speak it in there, and then you can put it aside. But then it's good if you've got the time to write it out, because the details are quite astonishing when you actually listen and write it. You're like, oh, that as well. And
Mm.
so that's another way. What I have found is I've had two students who've actually said this exact thing to me. I don't remember my dreams, yet they've had enough faith to come and work with me and commit to that. And with two of them, they had immediate, really intense results where they just for a month, suddenly every day. And I believe that a lot of that is to do with intention. It's a bit like if you suddenly decide you've never run in your life and you suddenly want to become a marathon runner.
Mhm.
It would seem unthinkable, but the minute you make the decision, suddenly it's a tangible reality. So I think there's a lot about that in there.
Mm. And to those people who may think, well, why should I know more about my dreams? Like, yeah, I'm just sleeping and having rest. Like, why is that so important?
Well, firstly, there's no should.
Yeah.
No one has to do anything, right? It's all voluntary. But what I'd recommend would be, I see it as the unfiltered language of the soul.
Yeah.
And it can show you so much, that because our mind plays so many tricks on us about what we think is happening, what we think we're feeling, or what we think we need. And the dreaming, there's no space for any of that to interfere. Um,
Mm.
and initially, it might look really abstract and bizarre and nonsensical, but the minute you start to actually understand it, it's actually simpler than it seems. You're like, oh yeah, of course it means that. And
Yeah.
on a very simple level, it can just show us emotionally what we need that we might not be fully paying attention to. And some of the information is astonishingly practical as well. Like I recently had a client who, in a dream, it came out that she needed to fix her car, and she had no idea, but it just came out in this dream. So sometimes the things that come out are really practical, but actually, if you had ignored them, the repercussions can really hit you later in a bigger way. Like you could end up having to pay a huge bill or
Yeah.
crashing when you're on the way to something important. So there's actually quite a few numbers, and a lot of dreams, we can have a lot of premonitions in dreams, more than we would expect, actually. So often it's that thing of forewarned is forearmed, and that can be really useful information for us.
Mm. Yeah, I guess I was, I was imagining or thinking about a situation where somebody was uh telling themselves, I don't remember my dreams, but what, like, yeah, maybe I could, but why should I go there? So you've explained that so beautifully. Thank you so much for that, Suzanne. And I know that because of your big passion for dreams and dreaming, and I am absolutely fascinated by it, as you know,
Yeah.
because it's just the type of energy that I love to immerse myself into. Because you're so passionate about it, you decided to do some work, and that will be shared in British Museum. Would you like to tell us more about that?
Oh yes. So I got really curious and really interested in the ancient history of dreaming in ancient cultures. And actually, there is quite a famous dream teacher, Robert Moss, that talks about this stuff, and that sparked my interest. I heard, he's written a book, and I just thought, you know what, I really want to know a lot more about this. This is so interesting. And the British Museum obviously has things from all over the world inside it, particularly Egypt and Greece, and they're two countries that have massive dream culture history. And Mexico, there's a whole room with Mexico. And so I've decided to I've been doing some research in the British Library around particularly Egypt and Greece. And they have a phenomenal thing. They had a phenomenal thing called dream incubation practice. There's a bit more evidence of that in Greece, where there were up to 300 sites where dream incubation was practiced. And they basically had temples, and one of them was called Asclepions, and this was dedicated to a god called Asclepius, who's a god of healing, and he had a snake staff. And it was a really big practice all over Greece to go to sleep in one of these temples, and people would do fasting and purification rituals, and they would invoke this god, and they would sleep in the temple. And some of the temples would sleep up to 100 people. They were quite big places. They also had snakes in them, like non-poisonous snakes. And there were reports of him appearing in people's dreams and people actually receiving physical healing, or they would get prescriptive dreams. So they might be told to take these herbs or go and bathe in this sacred well for 30 days, or, whatever it was. And there were reports of actual healings and or things people changing in people's lives. But this was also in ancient Egypt. And they had a similar thing where most of the temples weren't just dedicated to dreams, they were very multifunctional in Egypt. But they would have these priests that were like magicians as well in the Egyptian temples, and each site would be dedicated to different gods. And they would people would go there and invoke this god, and it could be for health reasons, or sometimes it was to get pregnant. Actually, that if people were having trouble conceiving, they would pray to there's a god Bis, who also is a protector of the dreamscape, but also of pregnancy and childbirth. And they would have these dreams, and if they needed interpretations, the priests would interpret their dreams, and some of them were highly trained and highly specialized in dream interpretation. But the priests in Egypt, there weren't any that were just purely dedicated to dreams. They were very multi-skilled. They had a lot of skills. But yeah, that's what I've been kind of immersing myself in. So hopefully within the next few weeks, I'm going to have some like start making some dates for this tour, because I'm really excited about this. And incidentally, they have two obsidian mirrors in the British Museum as well, which will feature in the tour.
Wow, this is fascinating. Will this be something that will happen more times or just once now
I
that
was,
you're creating?
oh, okay. Was planning on doing it 3 times, and depending on how it goes, I may do more later on down the line.
Wow, this is fascinating. Is there anything else you're working on? I mean, I know you've been mentioning some projects of yours. Is there anything else as part of your work that you would like to share with us? Some of your programs, special experiences that maybe people want to hear about and experience themselves?
Okay, so I've just recently started doing one-to-one sessions, and I love working one-to-one with people because it just means you can really focus in on exactly what people need. And it also means I don't have to follow a total program. Like, we can go with the flow depending on that person's journey. And I either work much more specifically with dreams, or we can do a dream manifestation combo. And it's all about creating your ideal life, making your waking dreams come true. And I've also got into human design with that, because I found that one of the things about manifestation is we all do it differently. It's not just one prescriptive thing for each person. And human design has actually really helped me to understand how different people and personality types manifest into life. So that's been something that I've been really getting into. And the other thing is, I've created a beta program called the Heart of Dreams program, which is where we go really strongly into different dreaming practices, and also creating your ideal life, really taking a lot of time and space to hone in on and look at what your dreams are, because sometimes they're hidden from us as well. We
Mhm.
brush them aside because life gets in the way. You know how it is. So we go really strongly into that and build like strategies and intuitive work to bring you into this, into a different part of your life, to transform your life. So I've created that. That's still available, but very soon I'm going to be creating the finalized version of that. So really, those are the ways to, if people are interested in my work, it's one-to-one sessions, beta program, but then the finalized program is on its way as well.
This is fascinating, and I am so grateful you do this work for the world, because I mean, we had the conversation that we spend so many hours in our sleep as well. And although we know it's so important for our physical health, because our body needs to sleep and to have that rest, also on a spiritual level, there is a lot that happens there as well. So what would you say is the biggest misconception that you hear from people when they talk about dreams or dream interpretation that you could share with us today?
Okay, that's a great question. So I would say firstly, it's this idea that dreams are just this sort of sorting box and they don't really mean anything. Now, I do actually think that there is a time and place where the dreams are sorting the information of what we've been through. It can be a processing, a bit like digesting. But I do actually believe that on a big level, the dream reality is just as real as our waking reality. And in fact, in a lot of shamanic traditions, they would say that the dreaming reality is almost like a magnified, bigger version of our waking reality. So that's something that has made me certainly pay more attention to this. So that's something. And then I think there are two types of dreams. There are sort of dreams that are, oh,
Ooh.
I've got balloons coming up. There we go. That's an interesting moment. Um, so there's a sense that I think that there are dreams that pull us back into our negative patterning. So not all dreams are necessarily happy, if you see what I
Yeah.
mean. But that's why working with them is good as well, because it can help us work through trauma and negative programming. So some of our dreams are actually getting us to repeat those things. And then some of them are healing and taking us into positive places. So I don't think the dreaming life is black or white, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
That
Mm.
it can be helpful and non-helpful, but if we're paying attention, we can learn how to work with that and use it for healing,
Mm.
basically.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that's super interesting that you mentioned about these different types of dreams. So, you're saying that the biggest misconception would be that people just think it's just like something black and white, but in reality, it's not. Is that correct?
yes, exactly.
Mhm. That's beautiful. And I know that some people may have these very significant dreams, and they would feel like they want to work with somebody for that person to interpret their dream. So what would you say, like what is the biggest difference between I had this dream and I'm going to go to somebody and they will interpret it for me, or I had this dream and I need to understand what that dream means for me. So what would you say is best? Is it one or the other or both, like to work with somebody or to try and understand it yourself?
Right. I'm glad you've asked this question because it's very, very subjective territory. And it's a big part of, I feel, that's important in my work. So, one example is different spiritual traditions have a code of this means this means this means this. And then you have your personal code, depending on your social conditioning, spiritual or religious upbringing or lack of, personal memories. So it's actually not straightforward at all. But how I teach this is that I teach some of the Mexican coding because that's partly where I've come from. But I always say, look, don't be rigid with this. It doesn't have to just be this. So what I try and do really is get people to meditate or do a type of journey to find out what the dream means. So then it's completely personal to them. And then if I'm doing it, if I interpret a dream for someone else, I channel it. So it's not just coming from what I think in my mind. Oh, that means that. I just allow it to flow through. So I do think that spiritual traditions can have coding that's useful, but not to be rigid about it or not to get trapped by it either. Like take it on, but be open. So my example, a good example, I think, is someone that has a phobia of dogs. So if they dream about a dog, now in many traditions, the dog is about loyalty. It's also about ancestors. But if that specific person has a phobia of a dog, it could represent fear to them or something they're frightened of. So yeah, I think you need to be really open-minded, and this is where intuitive work actually comes in very useful for dream interpretation.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the different cultures, they have their own interpretation of different symbols. And also it's your personal experiences, like you gave the example with the dogs, which, puts it all into perspective. But it's so important that when we go to somebody to help us with anything to do with our life, spirituality, like you said, to not be it from your head, because you mentioned it's you're channeling it, because you just want to make sure that with the person you're working with, they're not like projecting their thinking or their thoughts or their experiences into yours. And this is fascinating that you mentioned that you're channeling it. So when you're channeling it, do you go into any kind of state of meditation yourself, or how does this happen?
So when I'm working like with people, I do find things are coming through quite spontaneously, but when they're quite instantaneous, I know that it's probably some sort of download. But I also know that part of the reason this is happening is because this is part of my work. So I guess I am making myself self available for this. But if someone wrote to me and I've got paragraphs, I will actually do a meditation so that I can drop the brainwaves and go into a deeper state of mind so I'm receptive. So I do it both ways actually. That's how I would do it. And I actually teach people to do that for themselves too. So then
Mhm.
ultimately with time and experience and where they've got the confidence, they've got that tool and they can do it for themselves for the rest of their lives and they don't have to rely on other people. But I think it's good to share as well because sometimes people can bring a different thing to the table that's useful as well that we can't
Mhm.
see. It's always useful to have that too.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for doing this work, Suzanne. I'm super grateful because we can get like so caught up into this reality, physical reality, and so many things to do and goals to achieve and stuff like that when we go into our like soul space and then we have the connection with the dream reality, right? Which is a reality, and we can connect with those messages is absolutely fascinating. As we are wrapping up this interview, I just want to thank everyone for watching us. I will put the link to where you can find Suzanne and connect with her into the description of this video. And so, as we're ending this episode, Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to share with everyone who's watching this video? anyone who maybe is connecting with this idea of, I want to connect with my dreams more, I want to understand my dreams better, any message that you want to share with everyone who's watching us?
Well, I mean, like I said about the dream journal, and I think it's just very simply about making the intention to build a stronger connection and bridge with your dreams. And also, as a little experiment, what you could do is think about something in your life that you really want, something you really want very strongly, or it could be a problem you're trying to solve in your life at the moment. And just plant this intention for yourself before going to sleep that you're going to dream about this. And either you're going to dream it's happening for you if it's a dream, or there's going to be a solution shown to you if it's some sort of problem. That's just a very simple thing you can start to do. If you don't receive it straight away, it's fine. It might appear the next night, or and so on. So this is just like a simple way you can start working with dreams, really. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to you, Stella. This has been absolutely beautiful. Thank you for inviting me to this. I've really, really enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Suzanne. I'm super thankful that you accepted my invitation. And thank you to every single person who watched this video. Don't forget to like this video, let us know what you think, ask us any questions, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.